Yeah,
Wow.
Diane Goodyear, I grew
Couple
up with
miles
all
down.
of my life. She just lives down the road from us now, and she still lives down the road from us now. And we went to grade school. We went to Lutheran school together. I went to Lutheran school my first 8 years of school before I went to New Haven. And I went to St. Peter Lutheran on 24 Mile and Romeo Plank. And Diane and I went to school together all of our lives, and real good friend.
Diane Goodhue. She was another one of those fun to be around people. We were in either the senior play or the junior play together. She got the part I wanted.
Jack Devlomnik, a car guy in high school, was always driving something that was hot, and lived in Meade, and haven't heard a thing from him since high school.
Bob was kind of quiet, kept to himself a little bit. After high school, he joined the Navy and served on nuclear submarines for a couple of years.
John was always quiet, another one of the Meade guys. Quiet but strong. I understand that he went into service, and I believe he was killed in Vietnam.
Susie Deinzer. When we were in 7th grade, she dyed her hair green on St. Patrick's Day.
Susie Deinzer, the mouth of the class of '66. This is the girl that would talk your arm off. She grew up in New Haven, almost across the street from me. Knew her quite well, dated her a little bit, went to prom went to 2 homecomings with her. And she stayed local, she stayed in New Haven, and she lives there today.
Rosalind Young and I, we were really, really good friends in school. If we couldn't call each other during the summer months, we would write each other during the summer months. She was always very, very well dressed in school. She was one of our cheerleaders, very active in school. So much fun to be around.
Rosalind Young, very attractive, very well dressed, very outspoken person.
Mary was another really, really smart girl. She was very good at secretarial stuff. She would have been in the Business Professionals Association or whatever that they call it today.
Don Fuller was one of my buds in high school, another one of the New Haven kids in town. We used to butt around a lot and go on adventures in the wintertime.
He was just a really, really nice guy. A lot of fun to be around.
He was, after he got out of high school, he became a carpenter. He's like a cousin of my brother-in-law. And
really miss him.
Dale Teschler. Dale is the guy that I use as a story for the little tiny kids that I work with. Dale was always small when he was in school, and he has grown up to be like 6'5", 230 pounds. He's a registered nurse. He was my first love.
Karen Lee, another one of the Townie girls. We literally grew up together our whole lives. Used to dance with her in 2nd and 3rd grade in a dance team with Annette, and maintained contact with her all the way through high school.
Karen Bentley. That was my buddy in school. Even on our class trip, we bought matching outfits on our class trip, so we had matching clothes when we went to Washington, D.C. And we took a train to Washington, D.C. And we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of good times. Karen was always full of fun, always laugh, always had her jovial laugh.
Karen Bentley was a goofball. We shared the first name. She was just a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Diane Schwark, another one of the 24 Mile Road girls, was always the big mouth. This was Diane, the big mouth. And I still see Diane today because her kids go to Lutheran North with my daughter.
Diane Schwark, that was the other farm girl out here. And she's my cousin.
She lives
right across the street from us on Foss Road. And she had 3 boys, and she was very active in some of the things in school, in the business area at school.
Lester Walton, always very outspoken, very, very small and short, and a small stature, but very outspoken and very well thought out positions when he spoke. Paul Mazoski, was always one of the big movers and shakers in our class. You couldn't mention the class of '66 without Paul Mazoski. He when he left New Haven, he went to the military academy at West Point. The last I talked to him was his 30th anniversary, and he was working for Michelin down in North Carolina.
Paul Mazoski lives in South Carolina. He was very, very active in school, active in sports too.
Yeah,
he was very,
he was on that mile relay team that went
very
to the state
smart.
with
One of the
us.
smart ones in school.
Yeah.
Paul Mazoski. Paul was another one of the, if you needed an answer, go ask Paul. He can tell you.
Linda Longton, my first date in high school, 8th grade year, to the homecoming. Have not seen hide or hair of her since high school. She was always real cute.
Linda Steyer, I've known her since probably first grade.
Linda and I are the ones that work together on getting our class together and keeping up with addresses and everything. I just spoke with her tonight, just catching up on some of the people and some of the things. And she was our homecoming queen in high school.
And I think she
in
was
fact,
class-
twice. I think she was like right around the freshman area. She was the freshman queen, and then in our senior year, she was voted as the homecoming queen.
No,
was
one of the queens.
one of the queens? Oh, she was just one of the queens
yeah.
at that time?
Yeah.
Anyway, she's just, she's so much fun to be with and just a joy to be around.
Graduated with Linda, went to school with her from grade 1 right on through. Went to church with her. Her family and my family, like, were within a quarter of a mile of each other. And Linda remains in New Haven to this day.
Durand was, I wouldn't really say quiet, but fun, polite.
Durand Hamilton was always the sharp dresser. Always sharp dresser in high school.
Johnny James Jones Jr. What's his
Rubio.
name? Yeah, his
He
name is-
changed his last name to Rubio.
His name is Rubio. He was into sports, active and feisty and smart alecky. He was a good kid. He was a lot of fun to be around.
John Jones was always a sharp dresser in high school. He was also the jock. Have seen John several times. He works at DuPont with my brother.
Johnny Jones. I think he's the one who pulled my suitcase off of the overhead compartment on the senior trip and threw it at the guy that we threw off of the train.
Harold was always a car guy. Always drove a nice set of wheels. And he was always the stunt master that was the one that was planning all the pranks that we did.
He used to live, well, he lived halfway between me and DeLucky. Okay, so the three of us got together quite a bit. He was involved in sports, track, basketball, and football.
Merlene Neiman, one of the quiet 24-mile road people. She married Bill Thompson, who was my locker mate in high school, but I've known her my whole life, and I do consider her to be a good friend.
Merlene Neiman, she thought I was after her boyfriend. She ended up marrying Bill Thompson, and they're still married.
Sandy Schramm, one of the 24-mile road girls, a girl that I went steady with through junior and senior years, and have had some contact with her since. She's the girl that lost my class ring for me.
Eric Chapman. Eric was big in the band, played the baritone saxophone.
Eric Chapman. Eric and I go back a long way. He was one of the guys that went to the Meade School also, but he was a Methodist, and I was a Methodist, so we ran across each other in church all the time. So I've known Eric probably since second or third grade. He was real big into the band and not into sports at all. We had a lot of classes together because we were in band and we were in the same scientific program, so we saw each other a lot. He's a quiet guy.
Linda Podolin. Went all the way through school with Linda. Her family and my family both grew up in town in New Haven. She was always a real nice dresser. The best way to characterize Linda would be vertically challenged.
Bonnie Morrison. She was another one of those gals that was involved in everything. She was one of the smart kids, you know, she was a cheerleader. She was a nice girl.
Don Gallatin, a Meade guy, was always a car guy, always drove something hot.
Now, Diane Gant, I was in quite a few classes with her. We were in sports together, gym class together. I knew quite a few of her brothers and sisters in school. They came from a large family too, and the families are still in New Haven. A lot of her nieces and nephews are still are going through school now.
Walter Marks, another one of the Meade guys, a car guy. He was always a prankster in high school.
Susan Jones, she was someone that I hung around with. She was a nice girl. We had a lot of fun together. She was the one that would come to school in the granny dress. You know, it was the 60s, and she was the first one to have the granny dress.
Sherry Milton. Grew up with her my whole life in town. She was born and raised in New Haven. She was always the female instigator, and but never got in trouble for it. But yet her name was always prominently mentioned anytime there was something that was going down in school.
Sherry Milton's still around here. She was always a very happy-go-lucky person, and she's still
Still is.
happy-go-lucky and always has a smile on her face. I believe she works for a chiropractor up in Richmond and lives in that area.
He's a professor at Michigan State University. He was always the jock, the quarterback at football, the pitcher at baseball, and he succeeded very well in those endeavors.
Kirk Heinze, if you needed to know the answer to something, you went to see Kirk because he was one of the smart kids in the class.
Richard Chenault. I know Richard since we were
Oh,
kids.
he was
He was wild.
the instigator in school. He was our instigator.
Yeah, I haven't seen him for a long time.
He ran a lot of track with you.
Oh yeah, track, and he played all the
Sports.
sports, football, baseball, basketball. He was one of those guys that was very proud of his accomplishments in sports. And you know, when you're second team or when you're first team, all county or all league, you get a stripe. You know, you get your letter, but you get a stripe too. Well, he had a sweater that had stripes down one side and down the other side. And one day he wore his letter sweater with the stripes and his medals on it. It was unbelievable. I mean, he's just all medals all over his chest and the stripes.
He was the athlete. He was the mover and shaker. He was the mouth, the voice. He was always real outspoken.
Annette was always the pretty girl in class. You know, she was the popular gal.
Annette Franchuk, another one of the New Haven kids, grew up, went all the way through school with her, used to dance with her and Karen Lee in third grade, and dated her a few times. She got married. The last I heard, she had moved to New Baltimore and had 2 kids.
Annette Franchuk, she was one of our cheerleaders at high school.
Very active. And just
Very,
about
very
everything.
active in school. Her family was very active in the community too, the Franchuk family.
Bruce Haley, another one of the New Haven town kids. Grew up with Bruce, used to bum around with him, used to sneak smokes with him. Bruce married his girlfriend, and they moved out to 24 Mile Road, where he still resides today.
I was in band with Joe Morocco. He played saxophone and irritated the living daylights out of the band director. He was a nice guy, though.
Joe Morocco. Joe is a guy I grew up with. He lived most of his life literally right outside of New Haven, and we were in school from day one right on through to graduation. Joe was the prankster, but he was the quiet prankster. He was the one that planned everything, and nobody ever heard his name mentioned.
Arthur Budden. We had some classes together. I went out with him once.
Art Budden, I was real close with Art all the way through high school. We were buds and haven't seen him since high school. Don't even know what happened to him.
Arthur Budd.
That's your bosom buddy.
Arthur Budden. Arthur Edwin Budden III?
Arthur, yep, he would
Arthur
always say he
Edwin
was
Budden.
Arthur Edwin Budden III.
Yeah. I think he came here probably when we started high school. We hung around a lot together. I ran track, and I think that was the only sport he was involved in was track.
Dale
Dale
Teschler. Yeah. Oh, they had
Teschler.
big plans. We
Yeah.
all had big plans.
Oh, yeah.
We planned for It started in our sophomore year, and we all had classes together, and it started in biology class, I think, where they started drawing up plans that on our senior skip night, the boys were going to climb the water tower and paint the water tower. Class was 66 on it. And they had the most intricate plans of how to go across the field, how many feet was it across the field, how long of time we could make it in, and everything else, just so we could get up on that water tower and paint it, and who was going to go up and who was going to be the lookout. Well, it didn't work out because the police sat under the water tower that night after 3 years of plans.
I liked the village of New Haven was nice because it was in 1966 it was classic small town America. I didn't have 2 parents, I had 10,000 parents because everybody, I mean, my mom worked in the bank, my dad worked in the foundry office, and he was on the school board. And there wasn't any parent in New Haven that knew my parents that if they saw me doing something wrong wouldn't have hesitated to correct me. And just that flavor of small town America where everybody knows you and you know everybody.
As we talked before, my father was a New Haven graduate. My brothers were New Haven graduates. We were the first family to have 3 generations graduate from New Haven High School. It was our family's home. That's where we were all born and raised, and it was just home.